Now, is it possible that the people who lived in what is popularly called today Sub-Saharan Africa pygmies or dwarfish people? This comes up a few times in histories. It's like every time Herodotus says something about the south of what they call then Libya, which is Africa, this comes up that the people who lived there were dwarfish or very short people, maybe pygmy. So that leaves the question, is it possible at this time the only people who lived in the region we now call the Sub-Saharan Africa were only pygmies? I've seen many studies that kind of points out that the pygmies were in Africa first before other tribes, especially the Bantus and the Nilotes and these other groups of people. Even to the south of Africa, southern parts, you'll hear that the people who live there first were the pygmies. I was seeing some documentary about the conflict between the Bantus and the pygmies in Cameroon, and that also came up that these were the first people to live on that land, and then the Bantus came later. We can also say the same about we call them the Khoisan in South Africa, the Ndorobos in East Africa and Central Africa. They are short people basically, but there's always this information that you will pick here and there that these people were here earlier than the rest of us. Now, when you read histories, this comes up a few times. So for the first time, it happened when he was describing the tribes of people who lived in what was then Libya. And Libya then was used to describe Africa. And he describes tribes that are to the north, and these were tall people. Yeah, tall people, some of them dark skinned, but generally tall people. And then he talks about there is a group of young men who travel and crossed the Sahara Desert, and they wanted to discover what is to the south. And then they went and they reached a land that was green. And then they went inside, and the people they saw there were very short people, who had villages in that area. And then they say they were captured by these people, and they also mentioned that these people were practicing sorcery or something like that. And then they managed to either escape or they were let go, and then they came and brought this information that the people who live to the south are very short people, dark-skinned, dwarfish people. Now, that's the first time Herodotus does bring that up. The second time is when he's talking about the voyage around the continent, the first voyage that was commissioned by Nikos, the king of Egypt, and then the second one that was by the Persians that was not really successful. They just reached somewhere and they came back. I've talked about this in a previous video. Information that comes from especially the voyage by the Persians, led by a guy called Tispes, is that everywhere they went, when he talks about needing food, and when their food supplies were going low, they will stop and then go inland a bit to get some food. And he said the people they saw were very short people, dwarfish people, short people everywhere. They were very short people, and these people would run away, and then he'll get some of their cattle and then go back to the ship. Now, from this kind of small mentions, we get the picture that the people who lived in what we know today as Sub-Saharan Africa, maybe to the south of Ethiopia, were pygmies or some short kind of people, maybe big pygmies, maybe what we call here the Bushmen in South Africa, which is not a very good term. I don't like it personally. The Khoisan, the Hoi Hoi, the Ndorobo in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda. The Ndorobo are generally not very tall people. The Khoisan the same. So it seems like it's possible during this time tall people were not in the southern part of Africa. And that begs the question, where did the tall people then come from and then went to the the southern part of Africa? If you read Herodotus, the histories by Herodotus, then you notice that he mentions that Ethiopians were the tallest people he had seen. Ethiopians were the tallest people. They were taller than Egyptians, they were taller than anybody else, and they were dark-skinned. So is it possible that the tall people we have today in the rest of Africa are maybe descendants of the ancient Ethiopians and maybe Egyptians, or maybe a mix of that and the short people who lived on the land? Maybe they met and intermarriages or cross. That's possible that there's crossbreeding. I'm trying to find the right word to describe that. Yeah, right now there's no tribe in Africa you say it's pure something. It's always like it has a mix of this and that and that. So it's possible that all people came later, and maybe they came from the north. Maybe Egyptians and Ethiopians came to the south, and then they intermarried or intermingled with the Dwarfish people who lived on the land.